Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome, everybody. Yes, friends, it's time for Tiger Claw Radio. I'm your host, Critical Failure. Got a really good episode for you this week. Oh, yeah. Got some van casting, some quality stuff. We've got the top 40 8-Bit Collective, and on top of that, there was a new release over on the Battle of the Bits Bandcamp that we're going to take a look at later in the show. But let's start with the 8-Bit Collective, and this is something we've been doing in recent weeks past. Hemrock painstakingly went through the 10 gigabyte or however many gigabyte thing it is for the 8-Bit Collective archives and picked out his 40 favorite tracks, and we've been counting them down. And we are at 36, I believe. We did 36 and 35 last week. That puts us at 34, which is entitled Revoked, with no further explanation or artist or anything. So here it is from the 8-Bit Collective archives. Here's Revoked. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. So Dwarf Fortress has come out on Steam, but not only has it come out on Steam, it has finally come out. This is after years and years of development, and that game shot to the top sales chart on Steam. People just ate this thing up. $30, and they actually have graphics, not a graphics mod, but it's actually complete with a graphics set, as opposed to being the ASCII free version that we all know. It's being rated very highly, and yeah, that's a thing. I didn't take the plunge. I gotta say I was tempted, but with all games, unless there's some sort of multiplayer element that I'm chasing, there's the old saying, the early adopters pay the premium. Wait a little bit is what I think. Not just for the price to come down, because that doesn't always happen. I might not want to wait that long, but let's just wait a little bit and see what people say. But the response has been really good. People seem to really like it. I'm looking at the store page now, and it came out on the 6th. Today's the 9th. Overwhelmingly positive, but what's surprising me is it's marked as Steam Workshop, which I was not expecting. So let's visit the workshop and see what kind of stuff we have on the Steam version of Dwarf Fortress. I've tried several times to get into the free version of Dwarf Fortress, the ASCII graphics one. ASCII graphics are not a problem for me. They're not. But the original Dwarf Fortress, that's a lot, man. It's a lot to get into. It's a tall order. That's a game that you got to study to play. And the people who stuck it out and figured it out, they found a game that they could play for years and years and years. And there's a lot of games like that. Europa Universalis is another classic example. Just about all the other Paradox games. Real steep learning curve, but you stick with it and you got something for years and years and years. So I might take a shot at Dwarf Fortress at some point. But yeah, and honestly, like $30, it's a lot, but not really for a game as popular as Dwarf Fortress is, and for what games cost these days. It's not a deal by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm really just glad that they didn't hit $40 or more. So that's Dwarf Fortress, and there's not a ton to say about that. I did look at the workshop, by the way, and I honestly don't know what to make of what's here. Mods, which is a good thing. It's not one of those ones where people are making proposed mods for the developer to maybe add, like the Team Fortress 2 workshop was back when workshop first launched years and years ago. So while we're talking about game price, that brings me to the next little bit I have here on my list of stuff to talk about, and that is Need for Speed Unbound, which has just come out. Now, it's weird to bring up a Need for Speed game as news, because to me, they are not news. They're cool. I like Need for Speed, but Need for Speed is kind of like a Madden sort of thing. It's really the same game year after year. They just change the colors, they put in a new map, new cars, things like that, but that's okay. I never have had a problem with Need for Speed. Not really. With the exception of when EA shut down 50 games at once, the multiplayer, and then removed a ton of games from the market. A couple old Need for Speed games got pulled back then. That kind of sucked. But the series as a whole, no problem with it. Need for Speed Unbound just came out, and now I have a problem with it because the base game is $70. And I'm not talking about the special edition that really has all the stuff that you need. I mean the base game of a game with a large DLC base is $70. I feel like that EA is trying to cross a threshold into the $70 game. I'm just not willing to cross, especially not for an annual game like Need for Speed. Right? I could see $70 for Call of Duty. If you're going to get a DLC right out of the gate, it ends up being $70. But a lot of people were really, really upset about that. And I looked at the discussions over on Steam, and there was more than one topic saying, hey man, I'm not crossing the threshold into a $70 base game. There were only a couple of them, so I feel like it was largely accepted by the user base. I mean, this is a game that people purchased, but I guess the story isn't so much about Need for Speed as it is video games being pushed to the next step, at least being made more expensive. A little while back, I was talking about keys, how I was purchasing keys off of a key website, and I also read a lot of that in the Need for Speed Unbound forums, is that people were using key sites, and the deals they were getting off of key sites were not, huge. They were getting this game for $40-$50 instead of $70. So ultimately paying what a AAA game costs, or did cost, but the actual company isn't getting the money. So I have Kingwin open right now, kingwin.net. That's my key site of choice. And I found that site building computers because I used it to get a Windows 7 key and a Windows 10 key and whatnot. But they have Need for Speed Unbound, the Origin CD key, I guess if you want it on Origin, for $41.04. If you don't mind using Origin. So, that's a thing. Games are getting more expensive. Electronic Arts is pushing it further, and I think part of it is more options, right? They have to charge more because less people are doing it. I'm not saying AAA gaming is dying, but I'm just saying with more options out there, the AAA player base is getting smaller and smaller. But again, not to say AAA gaming is dying. It's not. It's not going anywhere. Just the landscape is changing. And speaking of the landscape changing in AAA gaming, I saw a trailer for Street Fighter 6 has a trailer out. And oh man, Danger Will Robinson. If you don't remember, back before the hiatus, I think this might have even been before. Yeah, it was definitely before Patreon opened for Tiger Claw Radio. I was big into Street Fighter V. Not at launch, but like a couple years after it launched, I got big into it. So I got it on Steam, and of all the games that I got on Steam, Street Fighter V is the one I've spent the most money on, bar none. Because I got the base game for a deal, and just buying skins and DLCs over the years. Probably spent about $100 on Street Fighter V, which is way too much money. Now, don't get it twisted. Street Fighter V is a good game. There was a lot of things to like about Street Fighter V. The story mode was, in my opinion, exceptional in Street Fighter V. To this day, especially for what it costs now, I highly recommend that game. Especially if, like, you're not really into fighting games, but you just kind of want to have one and there's nobody to play with. Street Fighter V. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get rid of the crackling. Bear with me. Is that a bit better? Yeah, Street Fighter V is a good place to start. It's got good single player, which is tough for a fighting game. A lot of cool characters. Just don't try and buy the whole roster. Just buy the base game, and then hang on a second. Buy the base game, and then buy the one character you're into, and then that should be it. And then you can get an awesome game for like $10, because it goes on sale for quite a bit. That said, remember that's now. Okay, this was a high dollar game when it was fresh. So I'm looking at Street Fighter 6, and that's what I'm worried about. I'm like, it looks like there's a lot to like here for me. It has the vibe Street Fighter 6 appears to be going for is very much like a Third Strike vibe, right? I sense a lot of, like, there's a lot of hip hop and you know, and that sort of thing, which doesn't usually speak to me, but in Street Fighter, when they embrace like the 90s hip hop vibe, a lot of spray paint and neon and tracksuits, man, they do that very, very well. So I'm looking forward to playing Street Fighter 6 in 5 years once the base game goes for cheap and there's a lot fewer people playing it. Trailer looks like fun, though. And it doesn't look like a very difficult game to run, either. It's using the RE engine, so I guess we're going to get... It was a Far Cry 3, the Street Fighter edition. Yeah, graphically, like, artistically it looks great, but graphically it doesn't look a whole lot more advanced than Street Fighter 5. So, I don't know. That seems okay to me. Again, I am hearing myself say this, and I don't know if I classify that as good news, bad news, or otherwise, but that's the thing. I don't know, how old is Street Fighter 5? It's got to be like 6 years old now, at least. Man. And in very sad news, Super Bomberman R Online went offline on December 1st. People were playing it at the last minute, and it went down with a message saying it was down for maintenance, and it never came back up again. It really sucks to lose Super Bomberman R Online. I really liked the Battle Royale mode. It was fun. Had a lot of problems. I can see why the player base didn't stick around. I can kind of see why it was short-lived, but it was a good time. And I got to give credit where credit is due. They gave a lot of notice. You know, there was like a solid 3-4 months notice that you could play and enjoy this game. Yeah, and down it goes, which is really sad because it was free. You know, they did that nicely, and I think it was the only other way to experience Bomberman on the PC is Super Bomberman R, not R Online, but Super Bomberman R, which I think is very expensive. Let's see what it costs. Bomberman. Yeah, Super Bomberman R regular price is $40. It's a little steep. So I really want to get away from, we're reaching an age where more and more I'm liking to see these old games that you can just get on Super Nintendo. You could get Super Bomberman on, get the Sega Genesis ROM, get the Super Nintendo ROM, local multiplayer. That's all you need. It'll be a great time. But we're reaching an age where I'm liking to see real options to do that. for a lesser price, and we can kind of get away from the old ROM scene, right? Old ROMs and emulators and that whole thing, that served, that was really important at one point in time. In 2001, 2002, a lot of those games, there's no other way to play them. There was nobody selling them. It wasn't a money thing. It was an availability thing. Now I think we're reaching a point where we can kind of put that behind us. So I'd like to see a Bomberman option come out that'd be more affordable and official, right? Because it's a highly cloned game. I'm sure if somebody who knows Steam a little bit better than me could probably produce, or not even Steam, just PC gaming in general, off of Steam, it could probably rattle off 3 or 4 Bomberman clone titles that you'd be able to play. But be that as it may, the Battle Royale game has been shut down. All right. So let's go back to the well in terms of chiptunes. But I want to change things up a little bit. I mentioned this at the top of the show. Over on battleofthebits.org, I monitor their Bandcamp page so that whenever they drop a release, I can see the highlights from the past year. And their latest release was Summer Chip 12. Very weird that the Summer Chip release comes out in December, but that's Battle of the Bits for you. They do pretty good work. So I picked it up, and I believe it's still free. It stays free until the next thing comes out, and has 50 tracks on it. So I'm going through it, and as opposed to the countdown, which is more like these ageless, timeless gems found in a river of chiptunes, this is more like a best of the best of what's going on now in the chiptune scene. So this is the second track off of that album, and it's called Half-Ass Blue Salad from YKN. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back. back again in the studio. We're going to head over to the van in just a minute, but first, we're right around the 20-minute mark. This is the part of the show where I like to tip my hat and thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. Big thanks to EmeraldRangers.com for bringing us back on the air. Big thanks to Hemrock and Tecmo Balls for supporting the show. Thank you guys very much. I hope you're enjoying the party. And with that, let's go to the van. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:39 p.m. It is 36 degrees outside. Sunday night. I'm headed out. Finally finished all my fatherly duties. And my wife is tired from hawking Tupperware all weekend. So I am headed out to get me a McFlurry. There we go, from good old Crackdonald's. Now, as far as video games go, the Steam, the last sale they had on Steam where they were picking out their like Steam Award winners or whatever, and when they do that, the game developers, several of the game developers are like, hey, don't forget to nominate us for whatever. And there were a couple that I could think of. One was Cookie Clicker wanted to be the Labor of Love. And then the only other one I could think of is Wizardry, the 5 Ordeals. Wanted to be the best game that I'm really bad at or something. And I nominated both of those because there were 2 cases where the game developer asked for it or whatever. So, okay, fine. And the awards were chosen, and they still don't matter. None of the games that I picked out, I think, were the ones that were actually chosen, which is fine. It's to be expected. I'm a million miles away from popular opinion. Nobody's voting Wizardry for anything. The actual Labor of Love was Terraria, which is a very fair pick, because that is a game that has been developed for over a decade without a single drop of DLC. So, that's cool. But here's the reason why I bring this up, why I thought it was kind of funny, was because when the results were announced, the following day, you could go to the Steam website, or the Steam, storefront, and there was a showcase of winners from previous years. And I think the one is Better with Friends is one of them. And just a couple years ago, that was picked up by Rocket League, which you may remember they used to sell on Steam, and then it went free, and then they gave it away on Steam. Epic bought it, so there was a review bomb of people not happy with them selling to Epic, and then shortly after, like 6 months later or so, it was gone from the Steam store. Well, that was listed. It was still listed, Rocket League. The banner was in the showcase and everything, and when you clicked on it, this has been removed from the Steam front at the request of the publisher. Thanks! Thank you for continuing to include that in the listings. Thank you for spending advertising space on a game that is not available to the general public anymore without going to the Epic Game Store. I thought that was hilarious. And that was a small thing that happened. Apart from that, there's not really much to say or care about when it comes to these awards and whatnot. So, it's a thing that happened. All right, I'm pulling into McDonald's now. I'm waiting in line at the drive-thru. Good times. That's really all I got in terms of what I'm actually playing. I haven't had a chance to touch a video game all weekend, I don't think. Anything apart from my handhelds. I played some Sonic Advance on the Powkiddy Q90 because that's the beater machine that I let my youngest son play. He's 3. He's been playing Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's been pretty fun. But yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to send you guys back to the studio. I'll see you there. Back again in the studio? Okay, boys and girls, you know what time it is.
It's time for the fail bag.
Woo!
friends, it's time for the Fail Bag. It's that fantabulous form of entertainment where I read your questions, comments, anything you have. Up to me, let me know. Just let me know what's on your mind, sugar. All right, over on the Discord, we had a couple in the Failbag channel from last week. Oh, Discord is checking for updates. No problem. We'll just pause this. All right, I think we're up and running. My brain just came to a screeching halt, like mid-thought. I was opening up a browser, and it took me a second for to get it loaded up. And by the time it loaded, I was just like, thought is gone. Well. All right, let's jump over to Discord, and we're going to go to the Failbag channel. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I was opening up, I was trying to open up Amazon. All right. So this is from Hemrock. He says, "Hey, CF, I enjoyed the most recent episode, 432. Could you post the specs of your set-top box? What controller do you use? Would you ever consider running emulation on it? And if so, what is it capable of? N64, PS2? Okay. That was what I opened up. I was trying to open up Amazon for because I need to dig out the specs to that thing. I sincerely doubt that it's capable of running PS2 because it's only got 2 cores. But give me a second. I will pull it out here. Just pause this one more time so I can dig that out. All right. Oh, that's gonna make it crash, did it? No, we're good. Okay, so I just posted the specs for the set-top box in the Discord. And we are looking at, it is an AMD A9 9400. It says up to 3.2 gigahertz. 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that is a 128 gigabyte SSD. It's got 2 HDMI outputs, which is nice for a set-top box. And yeah, I have a link to the Amazon thing where you can get all the little goodies. And for some reason I thought there was more information on this. Can't upgrade to Windows 11 online. Who cares? Yeah, okay. So I honestly am not sure what this thing is capable of because I've had things that it should not work have worked very well, and things that should work have not worked at all. Case in point, Twinkle Star Sprites crashes on launch from Steam. It doesn't when I run the GOG version, which is infuriating. But yeah, because I like Twinkle Star Sprites. It's a primo game for local multiplayer. It'd be a perfect game from the box. So I run the GOG version. So that's the way around that. Put it this way. When we get together, for Tigerfest, I mean, I might bring it just to take a peek at, but the Panzer is still the one to bring. I'm bringing the tower so that we can, so if we decide to do, some PC gaming, we can do the fun stuff. Good to hear from you, brother. Thanks for checking in. Hope life is good. And we got one from Kaiser. Kaiser K had checked in the Discord, who I haven't heard from in quite some time. And he says, "Nice to see that you're experimenting with Pico 8. Have you ever considered experimenting with making games for some of the other little indie systems, such as the WASM-4 or the Arduboy? There's a pretty cool scene for those systems, too. Plus, they have RetroArch achievement support. So my real question is, when are you making games for those systems so I can make an achievement set based on them? Lol. I would love to. Particularly the Arduboy. I'm not familiar with the WASM-4. This is the first time I'm hearing about that one, so I'll have to look it up. But what I like about the Arduboy is that they actually released the emulator for the Arduboy themselves. On like the ones who developed it are the same people who made the emulator for it. So Arduboy is available. It's not just available. Yes, there's a core on RetroArch, but because there's a core on RetroArch, you can also play them on your Ambernic devices. So I don't have an Arduboy, but I've played a few Arduboy games on my Ambernic, whatever serial number is the nice one I've been playing. Yeah, so I looked at developing for it a little bit. Not much, but because I was kind of interested in developing for the Thumby first, but I'm not so sure. We'll see. I haven't settled on it yet. It depends on what the tool sets look like, because I think, and I could be wrong about this, I think Arduboy requires C++, which is a little bit more difficult than Python and Lua and whatnot. Not prohibitively difficult, but it's a little bit more involved. So, is what it is. Good to hear from you, man. I hope life is good. Where does that leave us? That still leaves us at 30 minutes. YouTube. We have not checked in on YouTube. So, over on YouTube, and I did get this ready before I had to leave for the evening. Desm101 checked in last week. He says, hope you and your family had a nice Thanksgiving, CF. We took it easy at home and made a prime rib roast. 28 minutes in, he says, wow, thinking back to couch multiplayer. It's probably around 5 years ago when I had a coworker of mine over to play Life Force and TMNT 3 on NES. A couple co-op faves of mine. I think my wife and I played some SMB3 and Sega Aladdin a couple years ago. Crazy that that's such a rare event for me now. Yeah, man. Yeah. First of all, I know it was years ago, but props to, you had a coworker come over to play, of all things, Life Force and TMNT 3 on NES. That's awesome. I have never had, nobody's coming over to play NES for me. Doesn't happen. So I'm glad you got to, don't cry because it's over. Be thankful that it happened. That's what I say. And I think that runs, I think that is the comments for this week. All right, so here's what I want to do. We're only 30 minutes in. This was a major chiptune release that just came out. So since we're only 32 minutes in and we've ran through the failbag already, let's listen to a couple of chiptunes off of that Battle of the Bits album to close out the show. All right, so this is A64, who shows up on this track list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 5 times he's on this track list. I've tried to get on Battle of the Bits albums, and I have not been able to do it once, let alone 5 times in a single album. So let's check out what he's got. This is the 38th track 38. It's called The Bit Crusher, off of Battle of the Bits Summer Chip 7. 7? No, I'm sorry, 12. Jeez Louise. One of the Summer Chip ones. Whatever. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. And finally, as we wrap up for this week, the 50th track off of Battle of the Bits Summer Chip 12. It's aptly titled, Until Next Time, Take Care. This is DBOYD, DeBoyd, on Tiger Claw Radio. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.